Thank you for being here. Thanks for making all of this possible, certainly for moving this organization forward over the last 3 years that we have been in existence. And then the ICA team, which makes all of this possible. I am not able to sit here today without their support, so thank you. A big round of applause for them. For this wonderful exhibition that came about today, is not only thanks to Pinar Yoldas, but also to our curatorial team, to the curator of the show, Jordan Carneyheim, who is over here as well. And unfortunately, I'm replacing her tonight because she has lost her voice a little bit, but please say hi to her when you get the chance. And also to Roxana, who's on our curatorial team, and all of the team who actually put on that show. It is not 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. It is a host of people who made all of that possible. So thank you very much to them. And a special thanks also to other team members within that, our education team. For those who haven't seen, we have a wonderful education hub where there is an art activity for kids. So please go in. Even if you're not a kid, you can be a kid today. You can join and you can make some artwork for yourself. You can interpret the exhibition on your own. And then also thank you to our visitor experience team for making all of this flow so well tonight. You have entered this space because of them. I want to give a thanks to our supporters as well, to the Linda Brandis Foundation, who support our season, the Tippett Foundation, the Buchenbach Foundation, and to the City of San Diego, as well as to exhibition support that has been provided directly from Saha, that supports contemporary art from Turkey, and Sean Leffers, who is also from our board, who supported this exhibition. ICA San Diego is proud to partner with World Design Capital 2024. Thank you also to Michael Burkhard and UCSD Design Lab for supporting Pinar in the production. And I want to thank all of our members, all of you who are here today, who are making our exhibitions, our programs, our museum possible, because it is our membership, it is our community that makes it all move forward. So if you are not a member, I'm not going to make you raise your hand, but if you are not a member, join today. Not only do you get free drinks, but you also get to enjoy all the programs, and we are made possible because of you. So thank you very much. We in total throughout the year reach over 60,000 people. I think we're headed towards 80,000 this year, which is a fantastic number. But it is also thanks to all of our team that makes all of those numbers continue to grow and builds that larger community. So thank you to all of you again. The last thing I want to say is that the Institute of Contemporary Art San Diego is a living laboratory. We're here for transforming and really interpreting contemporary art. So we want to make sure that you are inspired by what you're seeing today, that you're interpreting it in new and inventive ways. I know I'm talking too much, but I want you to be able to feel free to have conversations around what we're talking about. And that's why we're here today, ultimately, to have conversations. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the panel discussion and give a little bit of an intro here to each person. This panel discussion was made possible through the Alliance Française, Laurence de Valmy, who is here, who really kind of brought this together, and Sylvia Almery from the French American Chamber of Commerce. Thanks again to the Mingue for making this space possible. And to our, I'm gonna change sheets here. I want to give very brief bios on each one of our panelists, so you know who they are and where they're coming from. Dr. Pinar Yoldas is an award-winning interdisciplinary architect and associate professor at UC San Diego. She is a Guggenheim Fellow, McDowell Fellow, twice, Hellman Fellow, and a Creative Capital grantee. She was also recently in the Venice Biennale for Architecture in 2021. Yoldas holds degrees from Duke, a PhD from Duke, an MFA from UCLA, an MS from ITU, an Bachelor's of Architecture from METU. There are 4 degrees here. And she is, and another MA, I'm sorry, I missed one. There are 5. Istanbul Bilgi University. I totally butchered that, I'm sure. She runs the Speculative Ecology and BioArc unit and is the principal investigator at Yoldas Lab. Drawing on her background in neuroscience and architecture, she is an artist and UC San Diego professor, and she has built a practice of speculative design that imagines new products, appendages, and creatures in the service of a more compassionate culture. While Yoldas has shown extensively in Europe for nearly 2 decades, this show will be her first solo museum exhibition. It is her first solo museum exhibition in the United States. Dr. Sylvia Cartwright, who's right here next to us, is a practicing psychiatrist based in San Diego, specializing in private practice. In recent years, her primary focus has shifted towards assisting first-generation professionals of diverse ethnic backgrounds in navigating mental health challenges, all while pursuing their personal and professional aspirations. She holds degrees from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore and the University of California, San Diego. She completed her psychiatry residency training at UCSD's health system in San Diego, and her professional interests lie at the intersection of medicine, business, and information technology. She is dedicated to leveraging ideas, scientific advancements, and efficient business processes to make precision medicine more universally accessible. Thank you. And last but not least, Suman Kanuganti is the co-founder and CEO at Personal.ai. Did I say that right? Or is it Personal.ai? It's both. Personal.ai, a new collaboration network that enables a creator's community to access a creator's time, knowledge, and creativity via their personal AI. Prior to Personal.ai, Suman has also founded IRA, recognized as one of Time Magazine's best inventions and Fast Company's world-changing ideas, where he scaled AI and AR technology to assist the blind and low vision community. Suman is a recipient of many prestigious awards, including San Diego Business Journal's 40 Under 40 and the Smithsonian's Top Innovators, and UCSD Rady School of Management's Influential Leaders. He's been featured on CNN, New York Times, CNBC, and Forbes, and he holds a BE degree in engineering, a master's in robotics, an MBA in entrepreneurship, and 10 patents in emerging technologies as well. So, thank you. Well, with that, I mean, that's a lot. There are a lot of degrees up here. I want to start off the conversation by just asking each of you how AI works within your practices. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to start with you, Pinar, because I know you want to talk a little bit about your work and the show, and also maybe tie that into artificial intelligence. So I'm going to start with you.
Sure, if I can figure out how this works.
I think you just hold it up.
Yeah, I think it's Does it work? Can you hear me back there?
Here, you can also hold this one too. Oh, he's going to handle it.
Is it working yet? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. It's an honor to be in the presence of such distinguished guests, panelists like yourself, and Andrew. So, thank you so much. I really want to give a shout out to Roxana over there and Jordan, who's been so valuable in putting this show exhibition together. It's an experiment, and it has multiple moving parts, as you've seen already. Before we zoom focus on AI, I wanted to talk about a couple other things that are happening under the meta title of Synaptic Sculpture. So the biodegradable futures part highlights sustainability. And I'm so lucky that I had the platform to showcase prototypes that help grow algae in urban environments and integrate algae technology to living architecture, everyday architecture. So that constitutes one part. And for that, I would like to add my thanks to Stephen Mayfield Lab, Bridget Boyle, who's here, who's worked with me for 3 years, who brought the algae to me, actually. And there's another piece on the other side of the exhibition hall called Foolsfall. For that, I'd like to extend my thanks to Mike Tolley Lab. We worked together on pneumatics. Those chickens actually move. So you can go and wave your hand around them and they'll activate and they'll respond to you. Part of the work that is not Zoom focused on AI is actually inspired by biotechnology. I don't know if you know about this about San Diego, but our city is called Bio Beach. It's called the Biotech Beach. And there are some orbs that have lights in them. They represent amino acids. There are 20 amino acids. Some say there are 22, but there are 20 amino acids that's shared by all living things. And I wanted to put it out there to spell the alphabet that makes us us, together with all living things that we share this planet with. So that is the foundation of life. And in adjacent to that, there are these gym balls that are inflated. We called it, kind of giggling, molecular comfort 20-seater amino acid chair. So all of those actually also represent an amino acid. And the whole idea was to kind of balance ourselves, 20 people sitting on them, but don't sit on them yet today because it's a working prototype. And it was about the balance on nature and culture. So those are the pieces that we're not going to focus during the panel. Just wanted to bring them up a little bit. Thank you for that opportunity.
Pinar, do you want to continue and go in straight into the AI side of your work?
AI. So what was the question?
Well, the question is more about how AI functions within the work that you do. And I'm going to pose this to everyone.
Right.
How does AI function
right.
within
Very briefly, I started thinking about AI when I was doing my PhD at Duke University. And my focus was on affect, or study of emotion, how emotion happens in the brain, and emotion's role in decision making, which then took me to artificial intelligence. Because around then I discovered this field called affective computing. So affective computing studies how computing systems can read emotion. And we already have them installed in our devices. I don't know if people wear Apple Watches in the room or have phones, but I started getting asked by my watch how I feel today. And some of you probably have that too. Like, these technologies happen. Facial detection systems were also something that I looked at. And it was back then very new, but it's getting more and more integrated. Then I realized that in artificial intelligence discourse, we don't really talk about emotion. Another thing I realized was that, and this goes back to reading this wonderful book called Descartes' Error by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio. I recommend every single person in this room to read this book. It was published in 1997. And it really shows us that we cannot make well-informed decisions if we don't have emotions. Now, I'm hoping every single one of you had an emotion today, right? Otherwise, you would be considered a psychopath, right? And we all carry a psychopath in our bags. It's called a cell phone. And most machines don't have this emotional capacity. Around the same time, this isn't the project that we have here is old. It was elections in Turkey. And I can totally say this because I'm here in San Diego. Erdogan was elected, the Turkish president. I was so disappointed that he was elected. And a couple of years later, elections happened in the States, and I was again disappointed. And I thought about an AI system that can lead a country, right? Or lead a city, for instance. And I imagined Kitty AI. It's a 12-minute film. You can listen to her speak, her origins. And the one thing about Kitty AI was not only she could talk with other AIs, it was based on networked intelligence, but she could also have feelings for every single citizen in her database. So not only she knew where you are, what you did, not only she could chat with you on a daily basis, she would also have feelings for you, which meant she cared. So it was my fantasy of a political leader or political leadership that actually really cared about the people that they served.
Thank you very much. Sylvia, do you want to lead also with how artificial intelligence is integrated with what you're doing as in your profession?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
A little bit closer.
All right, a little bit closer. So thank you for inviting me. Very honored to be here and sharing with you some of the things that I'm working on a little closer, working on and the ways. First, let me start with the ways that AI is transforming healthcare in general, and then I'll talk to you about some of the things that I've integrated in my practice and some of the things that I'm hoping to continue working on and help engineers develop. So healthcare is actually one of the fields that is the most impacted by this new adventure of artificial intelligence, with a promise of improving efficiency in processes and also improving accuracy in what physicians do. And so the promise there is enormous in terms of improving patient outcomes. And I'm sure that all of you would be excited to hear about that, of getting a more precise diagnosis, faster diagnosis, getting personalized approaches to treatment, and also getting tools that can predict high-risk events. And all of those things, there are already some applications that are being used or being developed to do all of those things in AI in the US and in the rest of the world. So, for example, Hopkins, which is one of my alma maters, has developed a system to predict sepsis, and the machine predicts sepsis several hours earlier than a team of physicians. It might not seem like a lot, but sepsis is a very dangerous event in medicine, and so that's the difference between life and death. Another application can detect diabetic neuropathy years ahead of a human physician. Those kind of applications that can be put actually on a cell phone can allow physicians now in remote to reach remote patients in remote areas and really change the life of a patient and their family and the life of a country, when we can allow somebody who would be blind at a young age to continue working. So these are tools that will have impact on personal lives, but also on society and our ability to participate in our communities. So these are the impact on outcomes that we can generate with the utilization of AI. Other things that we can do is change the way that we operate in medicine, from the provider to the administrative processes. So things like scheduling patients, billing you or billing your insurance, processing claims. So medicine is not just you and the patient. Medicine is when you go to UCSD, for example, to their healthcare centers, you go into this huge building, because behind all the clinical rooms, there are all these tabs that is making this happen. And it consumes a lot of energy. And one of the ways in which we can make our healthcare better, cheaper, be able to reach more patients, is to make the processes more efficient. Efficiency also means that we would be able to keep our providers. So you probably heard over the last few years how many doctors and nurses are leaving the field because they're feeling burnt out. And if we are able to make interactions with patients not as burdensome cognitively, we will be able to keep our providers in the field. And so now moving on to what I do, I'll start with this last piece, which is something that I just integrated into my practice just 3 weeks ago. So I purchased a tool that allows me to write my notes faster. So after a doctor sees you, and sometimes while the doctor is seeing you, we're frantically writing, and that's not the best use of our time. And so now we have tools that can listen on the conversation and create a summary for us. And so I bought one of those tools kind of to test what this was going to do. It's not perfect, but it definitely helps me move faster. And the most important thing, so I'm not trying to see more patients. A lot of the companies that are selling those tools are like, oh, you'll be able to see 3 to 4 more patients. But for me, what I'm appreciating is that at the end of the day, I'm not as tired. And then I can think about some of the things, and then I can go to the gym, and I can cook a healthy meal, and I can spend some time with my family. It's one of the major reasons I invested in this tool is that I wanted to create some time to work on something else that I'm very passionate about, which when I started to talk to some friends who were were mathematicians and engineers, told me, this is an AI application. And so in my practice, over the course of the past 10 years and the several iterations of the practice, I've worked with special groups. I don't do that all the time, but part of the practice is going to be a special group. So initially, I was working with patients who were treatment resistant, so cases that other people could not figure out in the community. And then now I'm working with this group of first generation professionals, which is a niche that I developed for myself. When you have something like that in medicine, you don't necessarily have a pathway that's already created. So you have to figure it out yourself. And one of the ways that I'm figuring out what to do and how to help with those patients is I analyze a lot of data that I collect from different places, and then I figure out what works for them. And so if that's very intensive, intellectually intensive. And for me to be able to scale that, I need an AI tool. And so I want to spend, now that I have one tool with writing those notes, I want to be able to write more about that tool that I want, that's going to help me deal with what I call dealing with the exception. And dealing with the exception in medicine is something that's really key. Not everybody just fits in the average. So that's what I do with AI.
Thank you so much. And after Suman speaks, I want to ask you more questions that are really aligned too with this larger question of creativity within AI too. So I'm going to let you speak too about your connection with artificial intelligence, which I know goes back many years as well.
Yeah, I'll keep it sharp. Hello, everybody. It's super awesome to be here. Thanks a lot for having me here, Andrew. So I'm on the building side of the AI. I've been working with AI for almost 10 years now. In my previous company, it's called IRA that Andrew was referring to, and that's where we worked together. It was a technology for people who are blind and low vision. So a blind person wears a group of glasses, which has a camera, and that connects with like remote human agents. And I met Andrew. Andrew was one of the IRA agents who basically sees through the vantage point of a blind person and navigates them through the world. And describes them, to make decisions and interact and negotiate with the physical environments. AI back then was more for efficiency reasons on the agents making life easier as well. But however, my life has transitioned into creating personal AI. I've been building personal AI for 4 years now. In my previous company, my co-founder, his name is Larry Bock. He is the co-founder of Illumina. Illumina is a biotech company here in San Diego. He worked with me almost 18 months before he passed away because of pancreatic cancer. And he was important to me because he definitely taught me a lot in a short order of time. How do we think about the problems? How do we think about the business? How do we think about strategy? And then after he passed away, in our IRA office, we had this huge, poster that says, "What would Larry do?" Right? It worked for a long period of time. And this desire to emotionally as well as intellectually connect with Larry, to ask questions, to have conversations, to continue that connection that I had before or access I had before, led to personal AI. So personal AI, raise your hands if you have talked to Alexa. spoken to Alexa, right? Most everybody, right?
Or Google.
Or Google, like anything, right? So Alexa essentially gives you this ability to talk to the internet, right? You ask a question and you get the response back. What we have created is a system where Andrew gets Andrew AI, Pinar gets Pinar AI, Sylvia gets Sylvia AI, and you can talk to Sylvia AI. You can talk to Lucas AI, right? So that's the system we have created to kind of tap into this existing trust and the access connection issues that exist in the world.
Thank you very much. Sorry, my notes here fell. I was very enthralled with all the things that you're talking about, and it's you're all coming from very different perspectives on how AI is being used in the world today, and there's so many more too. I had a really wonderful conversation with someone last night who was using all new AI technologies, some to manipulate voices and to think. I even told my wife this morning that he's using it to create documentaries as well. And I was asking a lot of questions about that. There's so many different uses of AI. And I wanted to kind of dive into that creative side. I just mentioned documentaries. What does it mean to create something? Is it you? Is it another being? Is it an artificial being? And I'm going to ask maybe like, Suman, I know you were getting into this and you talked a little bit about the formation of AIs, but maybe you could talk a little bit more just specifically about how it functions. Like, how does an AI develop and how does it create all the information? Just so we all have more background on that.
From a function standpoint, you can think about AI is more like an intelligence, right? We all possess knowledge. We all think. So we got into a point where this algorithm can think given a set of knowledge or a data, in the underlying system. So the way I would think about it is there is knowledge, there is model, and then on top of your model, you have these interactions that goes on. You can think about AI in 3 different forms. One is like text, which is knowledge. The other is visual, the things that we see, right? You can recreate or even have AI systems, visualize scenes. I'm sure Pinar has her perspectives. And third one is voice, like audio, right? We're talking about creating documentaries, but you can have AI mimic people's voices as well and talk like human. So suddenly we are getting to a point where all these 3 things, which is seeing, speaking, and thinking, they're starting to converge. And that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of movement around, blowing up the applications around the AI as of right now.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Sylvia if you could kind of, this conversation came up before, I think with all of us, and it probably is in all of our minds. Should we be scared of AI? Are we all going to die? Is it going to take over the world? What's going to happen? And I guess, how do we process some of that thought on how it's affecting us?
So I'm going to answer here not as a user only, but maybe as a therapist. And so first, and I'll tell you the techniques, that I'm using. The first is normalization. It's we are often afraid of something new, and we have been afraid of new technologies. Think about the fear when electricity was invented, when nuclear power was invented, or the automobile, what else, internet. And so here we are again with artificial intelligence. And so I think it's a normal reaction. We can just look at what has happened in the past few years with social media. And I think that so we have reasons to be afraid. And so that's the first tool here, normalization. The second tool is with your fear is exposure. So go and check out what AI does, read about it, and try to use it, try to use tools, and you'll realize that it's already part of your life. And so are there some parts that make you feel comfortable and enhance your life, and then some other things that are maybe scary? And so you come out with maybe a more balanced view that yes, there are some positives, and then there are some negatives. And then the third tool is take action. If you're afraid of something, you want to take action and then experience, and with your experience, see what you can do further. So an iterative process. And I think that we are justified to have some fears, and for us to be able to do something about it, we have to be part of it, learn more about it, so that we can be in conversations with our legislators, with the people who are developing tools, and say, we're afraid of that. How can we mitigate those risks? Rather than closing our eyes and say, oh, we don't want that, because we're in a capitalistic economy. Those things are going to get developed. And so this is what I have to say.
Thank you. Yeah, there's also, just to kind of extend on that fear, I would say there's another fear that I speak with a number of people about regularly, which is the fear of jobs being taken over by AI, right? People losing their jobs, or just AI taking over everything that we have, and then what leaves us? I mean, are we just going to garden and be at home and enjoy our TV that tells us what to do? I mean, what is that future? And Pinar, I'm going to sort of like lean the conversation over to you here, which is, I mean, you've envisioned a number of years ago this government taking over. I mean, I think a lot of us would be happy if we didn't have politicians. That's another conversation. But I mean, what is the reality of that? What happens when AI gets to a point where it's performing our jobs better than we can?
Right. Is this working?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I have so many thoughts. Also in response to what you said. I'm completely with you there. Normalization happens with encountering the technology and using it. I released Kitty AI as a film in 2016. Back then, ChatGPT, DALL-E, all of these things weren't out yet. And AI wasn't as popular as it is today. But that's 8 years ago, right? And AI was still pretty prominent with big data, right? IBM was pushing Watson. All of these other companies, now I'm blanking on the names, they were all pushing their products B2B. And Facebook had AIs, a lot of social media had AIs. There's this concept of big data, right? And to cope with that, it was artificial intelligence. So it was already happening. I just saw that, we are now data bodies. Like, I'm a data body, my age, etc., but also my pulse. Everything about me can be tracked. If I'm wearing devices that track them. So I'm also becoming big data of myself, the Pinar AI you talk about, right? And then I made that switch from, if I'm becoming data, or if I'm becoming machine readable as a person, then it's possible for a machine to govern me as well. And that's how I, went to the Kitty AI. And I like cats. That's I'd be much happier if I had to watch two cats talking cat has, as opposed to two humans talking, meow, 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 meow. That would be so much more fun as a political discourse, I thought. But back to this fear of losing jobs, etc. I don't believe that construction workers will be losing their jobs anytime soon, or pianists. We need bodies to move, and we forget this very fundamental thing that we think and we say things, and yes, our entire civilization can be based on language, perhaps, but there's a huge part of our existence that's nonverbal. We are animals. We are descendants of primates, and we make decisions governed by emotions. And for the longest time, we had this dichotomy, especially in Western philosophy, the mind cut off from the rest of the head and the body somewhere else. Emotion, that's assigned to females and feminine. Don't be emotional, you're getting emotional. And reason, Apollon. Dionysos on one hand, that's drinking wine and partying and totally lost. and the what pinnacle of civilization, that's logic, right? So for the longest time we had this division, but now, thanks to neuroscience and a couple of really intelligent people, I'm not one of them, we're realizing that these two can't exist separately. What I see in the artificial intelligence tech world is that we're still following the Apollonian idea, and it's very language driven. Natural language processing is what's happening. And note taking, I'm using something like that too, and it really helps. I'm a professor. It really helps compose emails to students. It really takes some load off of my, cognitive verbal mind. But there is a lot more to me than just me creating words, right? I have a body. I gotta eat. I gotta sleep. And those things won't be replaced by machines. And any job that requires a bodily existence, it's going to be difficult. I don't see a bunch of robots taking over the world and, we're only gardening, honestly. Maybe I don't want to see that also. Now I'm gonna say one last thing. If we don't educate ourselves on these new technologies, and AI is just one of them, there's also biotech. We're editing genes. We can do this very well. In 2018, in China, the first genome-edited babies were born. They're still alive. So technology is creeping in. If we don't educate ourselves on what's coming into our lives, then we will have no say on how our lives will be shaped.
So AI is currently trained on human knowledge, right? We feed it information, or rather it grabs the information that we supply it. And that could be historical records, it could be language, it could even be artistic ability from many countless artists throughout time. And we then provide a prompt for ChatGPT, as an example, to write a story or an email response like you were just mentioning. And then that AI model transforms that knowledge into something new, into something original and unique. And it's a very similar process I found with human creativity as well. Humans learn from books, from the internet, from the knowledge that they see and they gain from just living in the world. And then we use that knowledge to create something new, something unique, again. But there's a difference here. The only difference is, I think many of us might call it a spark. It's a spark of new idea. Can that spark be recreated, or can it be created by AI? I'll let you maybe start with that.
In different forms, yeah. So I would answer this by also answering your previous questions. I'm on the building side, right? I create AI almost every day. I send, maybe 20 or 30 AIs in a day. So first thing I will tell everybody in this room is nobody should be scared at all. It's no different than using the computer. It's no different than using the internet, right? There is science fiction and there is reality. And when we talk about science fiction, we can choose to be scared, or, as our dear panelists were talking about, or we can choose to take control and learn more about it. So from a, foundational perspective, right? Like the job replacement idea or the creativity replacement idea, I don't think anything will be replaced as much as the jobs will shift, right? So if you think about technology, it always has been a foundation for us. And the idea of human jobs always evolves on the fundamental foundation of the technology, right? If you take like recent graduates, what do? Right? They mostly build on top of the computers. That's the foundational technology that we have. 30 years ago, I didn't have internet, right? But then we were building on top of the technology of calculators or mathematics, if you will, right? So back into the creativity idea, I think these tools will still be an extension or a newer form of ideas, tools that we will have. And then smart people like Pinar will create on top of those tools, right? So it won't be like as much as a replacement is more of like an extension. So in the personal AI scenario, For us, ChatGPT, if you think about ChatGPT, yes, it's all human knowledge that exists on the internet. For personal AI, it's all your knowledge that exists inside you, right? So in a way, when you prompt for a creativity or an idea, you are inspired with your own past experiences or your memory. So in my daily life, I consult with my own AI almost every single time because I'm trying to understand what would Suman say if given a new concept of a new given idea, new thought, right? So in a way, I'm tapping into more of the self-reflection into who I am as a person and making that available to the people around me. So I'm increasing the access. So I think it only gets more interesting, not less interesting, and the jobs has to shift. So there is a learning process, and the shift will happen with every new technology evolution.
And the spark.
In the spark.
And how do you both feel about the spark? Can that be recreated? Can that be
So
replaced?
That's a question that I also had for Suman, thinking about this question that I have about using AI to figure out those exceptions, exploring the exceptions in medicine. But in general, if we have a process, we look at the norm and then we're looking at on a Gaussian curve those exceptions. Can AI actually not figure that out? I'm sure AI will help me figure that out, but could AI come up with that question? Because that's where the spark is, and in the human experience, when you're looking at a process and you're like, I wonder if. And so can AI have this moment?
Spark? If human can figure it out, AI can figure it out. That's kind of where we are.
But it can figure it out, but can it ask that initial question?
If you can train technically a body of intelligence on what questions to ask, so then technically yes. So it all depends on, again, back into the feeding of the data, right? If you have enough information and enough examples of how our thinking functions and you give it to the algorithm, then the short answer is yes.
I also wanted to get back to your question about will the jobs be eliminated? I think some jobs will be eliminated. Some a part of jobs are going to change. I'm happy that writing notes is much easier, and I imagine eventually I won't have to write. It will write itself, put itself wherever it needs to be. That frees me to do something else. That frees me to think about something that I think is more interesting, engages me more, but also could be more useful. As I'm trying to figure out, what's happening with those exceptions, the reason I'm interested in that is because with a disease model, let's say depression, I'm looking at the exceptions. I'm trying to understand why there are all those exceptions. Does this mean that our current disease model for depression is wrong? And so freeing my time, not having to do those administrative tasks, thanks to AI, allows me to move to, I think, a question that would be more useful to patient outcomes. So I see this as good, as some jobs are going to change and maybe some menial jobs are going to be eliminated. But we have to think about what we would do next. I wouldn't have a problem with a society where we are gardening all day long, as long as we have an income, right? We have a roof over our head and we have an income. I think that we're so attached to our working identity. Are we losing the perspective that we are also feeling beings? That's what we are when we are born. We feel, if when we actually get sick, when we stop feeling, when we are burnt out, and so we actually need, I would love to see a society that allows us with AI to have more room to feel, to experience.
I'd like to add to that. So I'm Turkish, and in the show, Genetically Modified Gods is inspired by the Aegean coast, where I'm originally from. And growing up, my dad is an architect too, so he would take us to all these ancient cities. And I remember playing hide and seek with him in like amphitheaters or tombstones. And those cities are designed in such a way that there's a gymnasium where everybody goes and hangs out. There's a pool, etc. Right? That there's an amphitheater. So they do their Netflix version there. And they have their Agora, where it's a marketplace. You dress up and you go and show off and play, etc. So I don't know, maybe there were also really bad things about that society, but when you just study the cities, it sounds like an awesome life, right? Like they have plenty of time in their hands to do human things, have fun, socialize, etc. And what you said about that working identity, it takes over. Like I feel burned out. I have like the artist identity, the academic identity, this identity. I don't even have time to do laundry sometimes, right? So I would love AI to take care of some of those things. So
To do your laundry.
Yes. That
I think we would all love that.
that would be great. But now I want to bring the question back to the spark. And maybe I'll be controversial. AI will not be creative. It's not going to have that spark. Maybe you will disagree. But it is not going to have that spark. There is one, I think, scientific reason for this, that it doesn't have a body. I think we really need our body to have a spark because we collect pain and pleasure through our bodies. And that creates a memory trail for us to follow. And we make decisions on what was painful and what was pleasant. And not just humans, this is what all animals do. Then the other thing is, we're not the only creative species in the planet. A lot of animals and plants are very creative. They've created ingenious ways to survive throughout the history of life, which is 3.8 billion years. So we can't just say that, oh, we're the only creative species. That's not true. So for that, we need bodies, right? So we need robotics to also do really well, which is, I guess, if a Pinar AI exists, I'd like her to dance. Now, the next thing is, coming from neuroscience, we have this area called associative cortex. For creativity to happen, you need to have motivation. You need to be thinking about a problem for a very long time. And you need to have experience so that all of these things can at some point meet at the associative cortex and a synaptic connection happens. I'm thinking about the creativity of Madame Curie or Kekule, who thought about the benzene molecule. Its structure wasn't known, and he dreamt about it. We hear stories about people dreaming of songs or, dreaming of really successful movie plots, or like the pillars of human creativity can happen, at an unconscious level. Are we going to be able to replicate that with AI? I don't think so.
So there is no replication for sure.
Here we go.
So the idea of creativity, you described it, right? Which is this core idea of experience, right? Now, experience comes from people. Right now, if I had to form my own creativity, I am tapping into my experiences that I have. Now, imagine if I can augment my creativity with your experience as well, right? So the AI itself, depending on how you define Spark, is not this idea of creativity as much as the AI is offering you some experience for you to be even more creative than what your own experiences may offer yourself.
Well, then you have to hire me, and then we form a team. That's how you get my creativity.
And how much time do you have in a day? 24 hours. And that will not change.
Why such a push to get so much done in such a short time?
It's not about time. It's about access, right? How many people in here has access to you 24/7? I don't have access to you.
I don't have access to me 24/7.
I cannot even text you. So the idea of the access is not just about having our beautiful conversation in here.
Right.
The idea of access is the depth that you offer to the world, to the people around you, to yourself.
Well, so you can get the experience of my creativity via AI in that you can scan every single thing that I drew my whole life. And I started drawing when I was like 18 months old. So I have a lot of data. You can scan all of that. And you can create a profile of how Pinar draws, the style through which Pinar draws. And the subjects will be repetitive, right? Because my brain is fixated on a certain number of things, right? But you will not reach the essence of my creativity. You will not
Agree,
know
100%.
you will not know how you will not be able to make a system that's going to come up with the next Pinar idea.
100%.
Okay, thank you.
But Pinar will have even more ideas when you are able to tap into that body of knowledge that you have. Because one of the issues is also our cognition, right? We are talking about, efficiencies and the cognitions and the anxiety. The problem in here is we've been creating all these experiences for ourselves. We've been forming these memories for ourselves.
Right.
And it's pathetic that we only remember 20% of what we create. And even, once we walk off this room, people within 3 days will forget 80% of what is being discussed here.
I hope they don't. They should come back to the show.
It's being recorded.
And actually, I hope they do. I think that it's important. It's protective for us not to remember everything. It's protective not to integrate everything. Think about kids, for example, or adults having all those options nowadays. You turn on, you're on your iPad and you have all this TikTok and YouTube and Spotify, and they don't even know what to do. So
Yeah, I think we are conflating two different ideas, right? One is about choice, right? For example, for myself, I grew up in India, zero technology. And I always wanted to know how I was like when I was a kid. I have zero idea. But as a human, right, I have a tendency that I would want to tap into my own memories, right? So it's less about everybody needs to have, the choice of forgetting, but I would want to say it's individual person's choice.
Mhm.
It's individual person's control. They have to make choices on what is good for them, right?
But that process also with synapses is called pruning. Like there was a baby here from 0 to 3. There's this very immense process called pruning, which started forming you, right? And it goes on until like your mid-20s or something. And it's about forgetting. What is it called? Lose it or use it, or synapses that wire together. That wire together. So, we are exposed to certain experiences throughout our lifetime, and at an early age, especially, at very early stages of development, they're either staying with us or they're taken away from us, right? And that is beautiful. Like, why would I want to just like keep everything?
You don't have to if you don't want to, but it's a choice of the individual.
Okay, you are bringing us to a very complicated science fiction scenario here. Like I'm going to grow up,
right?
I'm going to grow up, and I'll be like looking at thousands of memories, like keep that, lose that one. It's
And then we'll be spending our 24 hours deciding what we want
exactly.
and what we don't want. I feel like that's our day anyway.
Yes.
So it's just an extension
Yes.
of everything. I am going to pause the conversation a little bit because this is actually very interesting. I don't want to pause the conversation, but I do want to open it up if there are people who have been inspired. We have a hand immediately being raised. Would love to have you share your thoughts or ask a question. I'm going to repeat her question too.
Give you a microphone.
The three of you are clearly intelligent, well-intended, good citizens. Should I start over?
Go for it. Yes.
The three of you are clearly intelligent, well-educated, and well-meaning, I think. But what about the other side? The people who aren't well-intended, who will use AI for sinister reasons and for doing harm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Why don't you start?
It's a societal problem. In other words, it doesn't require somebody to use AI to do the damage to the people around you, right? The technology that is given to us in form of many shapes and many forms over the years, over and over again, right? So it's not about AI, It's not about guns. It's not about nuclear bombs. It's a fundamental societal problem. There is social engineering that happens with non-sophisticated technology like text messaging, like maybe phone calls, right? So no technology is either going to increase or reduce that unless and until fundamentally people come together and then address that at a societal level.
Just to add to your, that was a beautiful question. That's why education is so important.
For the record, and I might change my mind, at this point in time, I see little differentiation between humans and the most advanced robots with AI embedded that are in existence or are to be in my lifetime. That's just my opinion. And the question is, does personal AI include any features that would stunt any biases? Because we all have biases. So does your artificial intelligence tool include that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I know we are talking generally about AI, but particularly me, I play a role in the industry as personal AI, right? So there is ChatGPT, which is open AI. I come from the opposite world, which is personal AI. So I didn't catch your name, but it's a wonderful question because the idea of the bias is fundamentally baked into this core method of data aggregation that exists on the internet right now, right? So any model, any technically model that you take, specifically OpenAI or large language model, quote unquote, when you put a whole bunch of data together, there are somebody else who is making the decision on what data that goes into the model. Now, based on who those people are, who is putting the data, then the bias may exist. So in a way, this is a very beautiful topic to me because personal AI comes in as a solution. What we are offering is, hey, look, guys, don't worry about data aggregation. You take control on your own model on what you would want to capture so that way it belongs to you. It's almost like you are buying your own asset that is sitting, in your home. So the bias is down to the individual level because it's personal AI. It's every single person's AI that is almost carries their identity, their accountability, their ownership. So now you are taking control on how you would control the bias of any AI systems.
Just had a very deep experience with a stroke and how I had to choose what I was going to do with my brain, who had turned off at many levels, physical, mental. And I do not know what artificial intelligence will do for people like me. I'm fine now, thank goodness. But for when I felt that I wasn't, and it has to do with the brain. I mean, it's an amazing organ. I didn't know. I thought once I lose it, it's gone. It isn't.
Yes.
Continuously, you can educate. I'll never end now.
Yes.
But even everybody can make that choice, that the brain is who you want it to be. I need it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to jump in here because thank you so much for this comment. I teach currently a class called Art and the Brain to almost 300 students at UCSD. And the first thing I tell to them, I ask them this question. We have this fancy room like this. What is the most valuable equipment in this room? I ask them. And then they go, the speaker system, the sound system, because it is very fancy. The stage, someone actually said your watch, which cracked me up. Someone said you because of my salary, which also cracked me up. But the right answer is, it's you. You are the most valuable equipment. You are the most valuable technology. You're the most valuable thing in this room because you have this wonderful brain and you have this wonderful body that actually knows what to do. And as you said, because my mother also experienced this a couple of years ago, we don't understand the value of it unless we start losing it. And then I ask them, once we make this conversation with them, what are you going to do with the most valuable equipment that you have? what do you choose to do? What do you choose not to do?
Is AI going to take over the world? Is it going to steal my job? And how far will it go? And we walk around and really discuss the questions of emotions and choices, and which I think comes back inherently to critical thinking and decision making. And you've discussed, the fact that AI is unable to really have emotional thinking and emotional decision making, and that is critical to human creation. I mean, and we talked about you talked about engineering, for example, and architecture. A lot of, analytically making this building this way makes sense and the most sense, but sometimes the architect is going to say, maybe I think we should do it this way, and sometimes it turns out well, sometimes it doesn't. So, is that something that is going to hinder AI in the future if we want AI as a decision maker and a creator? Or so is that the ceiling, kind of the AI technology for the future?
If I can add to that question, Suman, can we actually put that in AI? Can we put more ethical consideration for the choices in AI?
My perspective, right? Human are much smarter than any other technology that can offer us, right? The most interesting thing is we are always worried about the unknown because we haven't experienced as of yet. But I betcha once you have the tool in your hands, if you're a construction worker, you will create amazing things, better, robust buildings, better architectures, more happier things, right? So there wouldn't be a situation from my perspective where this robots are going to take over or AI is going to take over, because humans are much smarter than that. They will always keep the control. I mean, look at us. I mean, there is nothing that is more smarter than a human being on this planet. For real, if somebody wants to actually try talking to me, s.personal.ai. It actually has my mind, my voice as well. So if you want to try it, you can try it. The letter S, as in my first letter, Suman, s.personal, just the word personal.ai. You will actually talk to me.
So I'm a research scientist, and so I'm sure you guys can be in the same boat here. It can be a little irritating sometimes to disseminate our own information to the public or other scientists, and sometimes I have admittedly used ChatGPT to streamline this process. Unfortunately, during that, I've realized that it's also hindered my own creative experience. Like a lot of the innovation I come across is actually from trying to imagine how someone would consume what I'm trying to say. And so how do you see us going forward using AI as a tool, but not atrophying that portion of our creative brain? So we've had innovation in the past in terms of like machinery, which has made it easier for us to get around. And that's resulted into some atrophying of our own muscles, but our brains are kind of a big deal. So how do we avoid that?
Don't use ChatGPT, use Personal.ai.
s.personal.ai.
I mean, in all seriousness, that's the value proposition for this company, right? Yeah, sure. Of course, I'm saying Personal.ai, but that is like truly the value proposition. The idea of relying on the general knowledge is like average of averages, right? But from my perspective, I would tend to think every human has their own story, their own unique mind, their own unique way of thinking, right? Make that your primary AI, so that way you can tap into, unlock, and how you would think. Otherwise, it's going to be general. Everybody will have the same prompt. Everybody will get the same answer.
What are your suggestions?
I don't know if I understood your question really well, but I want to hint back. I want to go back to an earlier experience of mine when I was confronted with using computers in my work. This would be many, many years ago. And I come from chemistry and architecture. And back then in architecture, using computers wasn't allowed. Like when I used AutoCAD to draw, my professors would be like, oh, you didn't draw this yourself. Like that was literally the argument they made, and we would get a C, right? So we were forced to draw by hand, etc. But around the same time at MIT Media Lab, they were discussing smart cities. So as a young mind, I was like, okay, this is how the practice is in Turkey, but like out there, people are like really thinking about Internet of Things, etc. So I decided to learn coding. I don't come from computer science. I'm just an architect who was forced to draw by hand. No experience in coding except for a Commodore 64 that I broke apart, when I was very young. And I'm like really freaking out. I have no idea where to begin, right? And I would say that the first couple of months, I believed that the computer was smarter than me. And it was so hard for me to really like get into coding, have it do something, etc. Then we had a workshop. Luckily, someone from MIT Media Lab flew in. And the first thing he told us was that you are a lot smarter than this machine. It was a paradigm shift. It was like a switch for me. I understood that I am the boss here, right? And I'm echoing what you just said. I think it's also about like this kind of question of self-esteem and confidence, and knowing that, okay, there might be a huge company behind this product, and it's been pushed to me, and I'm using it, but I get to make the actual decisions here. I don't know if this helps with your question. Maybe I just went down the memory lane for no reason because I have the microphone. But yeah.
That made me think of a T-shirt that I saw a few days ago. It said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is taken." Something like that. So what I would encourage you to do is to leverage the tool. And so it can fasten some of your tasks. You can do that. But indeed, for your own creativity, for what you're trying to think about, at least for the moment, maybe in a few years it will change. For your moment, it's your spark. You're the boss. And so you can use the tools to do something that would take you maybe a lot of time, and it's not really your input. You don't add a lot of value, and then it frees your time to do where you add value, and then you can create more. Mm-hmm. That's where I see the value, and actually that's how I'm using it right now.
Thank you. A round of applause, please.